Good evening, everybody. This is OL Nation, session 6. 6 months have gone, and we've been having fun sharing our life stories and professional lives with us. Thank you, everybody in India and all across the world for joining us. We have a great session lined up as usual. And now, coming all the way from Atlanta, Georgia, is our one and only co-host, Kalpana Kutaya. Kalpana has been with us right from the very beginning, and she's going to take it away. Take it away, Kalpana. Good evening.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Rohan. Thank you very much once again for joining another session of OL Nation. We are happy to bring you this health and wellness segment. If you remember, when we got back from our holidays in school, we would all be directed to the hospital, and we had to produce our immunization report, take our heights and weights. All of that was to ensure that we stayed well, we were happy, and we kept well. So before starting, let me give you a couple of housekeeping tasks. The first is, if you have joined the webinar live, please type in your questions in the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And if you have joined on YouTube or Facebook, we have volunteers who will pick up your questions and send it to us. Please make sure to let us know which panelist or speaker you are addressing your question to, and we'll make sure they get answered. The second would be to please have a paper and pen handy, because you will need that in the first part of our session. Health and wellness has never been so important in each and every one of the world, to everyone in the world this year. This year has been unusual for all of us. Our physical health, our mental health has been tested and tried with all the seclusion and that we've dealt with in this pandemic. Our opening panelist is going to address the health and wellness issues. He's Adrian Kennedy, Arvely House, batch of 1965, who has a unique, never given story. His extremely impressive bio and a career has been posted on social media. Over many decades, he has won multiple academic and sports awards. A few highlights of his career are as follows. He's won the President of India Gold Medal for the best school student, Governor of West Bengal Medical Best Student, University student, a PhD in holistic practitioner, Harvard Medical School Faculty Lifestyle Medicine, National and Asian champion for 100 and 200 meters, multiple sports and national and international participation, including leading a team that swam the English Channel. He has been a leader and a trailblazer in the world of wellness, where he started pioneering work at Harvard University. Today, he's known globally as a distinguished health researcher, a corporate wellness leader, and an ambassador of lifestyle medicine. In 2017, he won a top 100 global healthcare leader. His topic for today is entitled Health and Lifestyle Assessment. Adrian, please unmute your mic and take it away.
Hey, Kalpana, how are you?
Good, thank you, Adrian.
Good.
Glad to be here with you.
Good. Now, for the rest of my friends, Kalpana is coming from Atlanta, and I am speaking to you from Dubai.
Glad to meet you.
Okay, friends. Okay, good day. I asked Kalpana the question, how are you? And this entire session is going to be an answer to that question as to how you are. A series of health and lifestyle tests. We will talk about that in a minute. Now, I will attempt to tell you exactly how you are, keeping in mind a series of health and lifestyle tests. Now, I'm quite sure you would have done a medical test. My tests are all lifestyle related. And why are they lifestyle related? Because the biggest killer worldwide today is lifestyle. Okay, friends, in order to start this test, we just need to keep in mind the basic definition of health. Health, as defined by the WHO in 1956, is not just the absence of illness, but a state of physical, mental, social, and spiritual well-being. Now, if you were to go for a medical check, it would tell you how ill you are. But if you were to go for a medical check, a health check like the one I'm proposing, well, then we will evaluate your nutrition, your diet, your physical fitness, your stress levels, your entire complex of health, and give you what is known as a health score. And the good news is we will correlate that health score with your age. You could be younger than you are, or you could be older than you are. Take your date of birth as your legal age. Your body's age is different depending upon the way you have treated it. Now, in order to do this series of tests, all you need is to record the tests that you have passed or failed, but basically the tests that you have passed. In my days, we used a pencil and paper. Many of my younger colleagues, including my son and daughter, nowadays use their mobiles to record everything. So, health is not merely the absence of illness, but you cannot evaluate health without evaluating illness first. So I'm going to ask you just 3 quick medical questions. Each question will not take more than a minute, not more than a minute. So my first question is, do you have a family history? And a family history is defined as your biologic family meaning your parents or grandparents or siblings. Do anyone in your family, parents, grandparents, or siblings, have they had a heart attack or cancer, or do they have hypertension or diabetes? Now, if that is the case, the assumption is that you have a family history of these ailments and you are at risk. It would then mean that you will have failed test number 1. So in the column or in the area where you record whether you've passed or failed, you may just kindly write fail. It means that you have a risk for getting these ailments in future years unless you do not change your lifestyle. So that is test number 1. Test number 2, most of the modern day ailments are silent. Hypertension, diabetes, hypercholesteremia. Most of them are silent. You have no indication that you have this ailment unless you have a medical check. And then your blood will be checked. You will have an X-ray of the bony structure. You will have an ECG and all these different tests, which will tell you exactly what illness you have. And therefore, my question number 2 is, have you had a medical check during the last 1 year? Have you had a medical check during the last 1 year? If you have had a medical check, you will have passed this test. If you have not had a medical check, you will fail test number 2. Now remember, what we are trying to do is to help you to evaluate your health, keeping in mind your lifestyle. Test number 3, or question number 3. Are you currently taking any medication? We usually take medication if there's a breakdown in some body system. If you have a headache, you will take a pill for a headache. If you have arthritis, you will take a pill to reduce that pain. If you have hypertension or diabetes or hypercholesteremia, you will take medication. So my question to you here is, are you currently on any form of medication? If you are on some medication, you will fail test number 3. So I've asked you 3 simple questions on the medical aspect. You will have completed 3 tests and indicated whether you have passed or failed. Now, health is not merely the absence of illness. It is a state of physical, mental, social, and psychological well-being. So we now talk about the physical aspects. The first test, way back in 1990, when the world, when the Metropolitan Life Insurance started evaluating health, the first thing that they defined was that if you are overweight, you will be unhealthy in future years. So the first test that I have to ask of you is, do you remain or are you within the height weight range as indicated by this chart? Now, this is a standard height weight chart. Height weight BMI, it's all the same thing, more or less. If you are within this height weight chart ratio, your height is given. If you're a male, the weight range is available. If you're a female, the weight range is available. Check to see whether you are in this height weight range. And if you are, you will have passed the test. Now, these tests will be shown later for the next month in the OL channels such as Facebook and other such things. So you could follow it through at that time also. In 1960, I'm now going to test number 5. In 1960, we discovered that all world champions in the Rome Olympics, 90% of world champions in the Rome Olympics were overweight. And the reason why they were overweight was they had high ranges of body fat. They had high ranges, I take that back, they had high ranges of body muscle, but low ranges of body fat. We discovered at that time that it was not excess muscular weight that caused the problem, but excess body fat. And excess body fat, especially around the mid-region, especially around the abdomen, is a major risk factor. Now, there are many ways in which you can measure this body fat around the mid-region. One of the ways is test number 5 as indicated over here, or another simple way is you simply measure your waist and then measure the upper pectoral across your chest, or in case you're a lady, measure the upper hip. And in case your waist is larger than your chest or your upper hip, you will have failed the test. But in this instance, we have asked you to take a pinch test, which is pinch that roll of fat that is above your hip, and then measure that against the first phalange of your finger. Not the full finger, but the first phalange. In case it measures within the first phalange of your finger, it would mean that you have the allowable body fat ranges for a human. The allowable ranges, for your information, for the female is 23% and for the male is 18%. But for us, it is just 1 inch of fat around the abdominal region. Now that was test number 5. Test number 6, cardiorespiratory. Perhaps the most important test here, in the sense that more than 60% of individuals around the world will succumb to a cardiac ailment, and therefore this is cardiorespiratory, heart and lung. In terms of fitness, this is known as stamina. This is test number 6. In this instance, I will not ask you to take your pulse rate, which is the cardio test. It may be difficult for many of us to take our pulse rate. We are not used to it, but I will ask you to hold your breath. I am now testing your lung capacity, which means I will ask you to take a deep breath. Just watch me. Take a deep breath. And then hold your breath for as long as you can. I am now talking in terms of test number 6. So I'm going to ask you to take a deep breath, and then I'm going to ask you to hold your breath for as long as you can. I will keep a watch on the time of 45 seconds, but you may utilize your own stopwatches also. Ready? Please breathe. Now hold your breath for as long as you can. If you have hypertension or are asthmatic, you could discontinue the test if you feel any difficulty. 15 seconds over. For the rest of us who are robust and who have an abundant lung capacity and who believe they have enough stamina, forge on. You have now completed 30 seconds. I would like you to hold your breath if possible in order to pass this test for another 15 seconds, of which you have 5 seconds to go. 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, you can take a deep breath. You have passed that test. You have passed test number 6, hopefully. And now we have test number 7, musculoskeletal. Muscle means, well, musculo means the muscle and skeletal means the bone and joints. Usually for the muscular test, I might ask you to do a sit-up, but I'm not going to ask you to do a sit-up today. I will perhaps ask you to do what might seem an easier test for you, but is usually a more difficult test for most. And that is, can you touch your toes? Test number 7, spinal flexibility. Get off the chair and see if you can touch your toes, keeping your knees locked. If you can touch your toes, it means that you have a supple back, you have good joint mobility, you will not be susceptible to back ailments, arthritis, and spondylosis. So please go ahead and try that test. And once you complete it, give yourself a pass or a fail mark. Now, your height, weight, and body fat ratios evaluated your structure. Cardiorespiratory was stamina. Musculoskeletal was strength and flexibility. All these put together is physical activity. And the rule on physical activity is very simple. Do you exercise in terms of walking, jogging, cycling, swimming, going to the gym, or doing any activity not included in your day-to-day activities? You could, of course, benefit from climbing steps and things like that. But no, this is the half hour that you dedicate to exercise. Do you exercise every day for at least half an hour or 45 minutes? Personally, I would like 1 hour a day. But if I were to go by world standards, as enunciated by the American College of Sports Medicine, it is 30 minutes a day or 1 hour every alternate day. If you do not exercise for this period, you would fail test number 8. Now, we've evaluated your physical fitness. Now, let's talk about your diet. The food you eat, you are what you eat. And the early remedies by the father of medicine, Hippocrates, was in fact diet. And he said, your food is your medicine or your poison. So the test over here is very simple. The best food that you can possibly eat is fruit and vegetables. They contain minerals and vitamins and antioxidants and carbohydrate, traces of protein, fiber, almost everything that you need. So, do you eat fruit and vegetable every day? I, for myself, have a fruit at breakfast and a salad at lunch. Remember, when I say vegetable, I mean it needs to be uncooked in the form of a salad. So test number 9, do you eat uncooked fruit and vegetables every day? If you do, you pass test number 9. Now, the human body is fluid. Our blood, 99% fluid. The brain, 80% fluid. Your bones, 66% fluid. Your muscles, 88% fluid. So the body requires fluid. Now, how do you know that you are having sufficient fluid? Well, the technical ratio is for every 10 kgs of body weight, 200 ml of fluid. But for me, the question, or for me, the suggestion in this test is very simple. Do you have at least 6 glasses of water? 6 glasses of water. 1 bottle of water or 1 glass of water is about 200 ml. So do you have about 6 glasses of water every day? That would be about 1.5 liters. Now remember, I said water, and water is not compensatable by beer. Just keep that in mind, friends. So I'm talking in terms of test number 10. In order to pass that, you have to have had 6 glasses of water every day. Now, if fruit and vegetable is your best food, then your worst food is perhaps the tastiest. We're talking in terms of hamburgers and Kentucky chicken and noodles and pasta and macaroni and so on and so forth, commercial foods that you buy from the local market. Now they have extra sugar, extra salt, extra chemicals, extra coloring, extra preservatives, all to make them better than natural foods in terms of their taste, perhaps. But remember, the second largest cause of cancer in the world is commercial foods. So therefore, you must avoid eating commercial foods and you will fail this test in case you eat outside your home or you eat commercial foods more than twice a week. Twice a week. In case you exceed that, your food toxicity builds up. And in 20 or 30 years, you could be victim to the second biggest killer in the world, and that is cancer. At the end of this session, you will have completed, at the end of this slide, you will have completed 11 tests. So please check to see whether you have completed 11 tests. Now we move on. Up to now, I questioned or I evaluated you on the medical aspect, on the physical aspect, and the nutritional aspect. I am now evaluating you on the psychological aspect or the psychosocial aspect. So the first question, psychosoma. Psychosoma is defined as ailments caused by mental stress. And some of the indicators that you could be under mental stress are headaches. So my question is, do you have any of the following? Do you frequently, defined as once a week, do you frequently have headaches? Are you frequently irritable and short-tempered? Do you have problems with sleep? Now, those three aspects evaluate the mind or the neurological system in a light way. Do you have trouble breathing? Do you have cough and cold? Do you have asthma and bronchitis? That evaluates the respiratory system. Do you have digestive ailments? Constipation, perhaps a loose tummy? That would be your digestive system. Do you have pains in the muscles and joints? That would be the muscular and the bony system. Do you have hypertension or diabetes? That would be your circulatory system. Do you have allergies? We have a complete session on allergy within the next few minutes. Do you have allergies? These allergies could be caused by mental stress and tension, or at any rate, aggravated by stress and tension. Now, if you have any one or many of these, you will fail test number 12. It means that you have a psychosomatic tendency. That's test number 12. Test number 13 is your personality. Now, if you were to go for a job, the HR manager would very likely evaluate many aspects about your qualifications and so on and so forth. And he or she will also look at your personality. Are you ambitious? Are you competitive? Are you result-oriented? Are you hardworking? In case you are any of these, you will most likely get the job. You are an executive type personality. We are looking at test number 13. You are an executive type personality. You will most likely get the job, but from a medical perspective, keep in mind that you are a high stress type A cardiac prone personality. And this personality will take its toll on your health. We would prefer that you have a more gentle personality in terms, it's called a type B personality, where you are less driven, where you compete with yourself rather than compete with others. But test number 13 is your personality test. Ambitious, competitive, result-oriented, executive-type personalities. It'll have an impediment on your health, and therefore you fail test 13. Otherwise, you pass. We are talking stress. Where do you have the most stress? The most stress you will have at work or in your occupation, even or more so if you are a homemaker. You will have stress getting the kids dressed, getting the kids to school, tidying the house, cleaning the dishes, and so on. And if you are a worker, getting to work, working under a boss who very likely you don't like, working for a salary which very likely is too little, working at a location which very likely is too far off, doing a job which is not to your satisfaction. So you will have stress. And most of the people say, well, that is what you are paid for. But you will pass this test if, like me, you love your job. I'm paid too little, my boss is a pain, my work is too far, but I love my job. And my job is my hobby rather than my work. And therefore, I pass the test. And in case you have a similar feeling of passion for your work and you love your job in spite of all its limitations, you too will pass test number 14. Otherwise, regretfully, you fail. For all of us gentlemen, we need to know that our home is our castle and you are the king of your castle. But we know that all castles are ruled by the queen. And therefore, you could have stresses at home. As a matter of fact, 49% of homes have stressful situations. And these stressful situations can come not only from your spouse, but can also come from the children who may be unwell or not doing too well academically. Or it could come from your in-laws or the ill health of your parents. It could come from any of these sources. And if you are stressed at home, you would fail test number 15. Test number 16 relates to stress and daily routine, or stress and problem, stress and crisis. If you have a problem, usually it is stressful. How do you eradicate that problem? By solving the problem. But there are certain problems that cannot be solved immediately. During the pendency of a problem, you will have stress. Now, what is stress? Stress is the extra secretion of adrenaline within the system that causes the body to hyperventilate. It causes the body to have increased heart rate, increased circulation. All of these are good in terms of a physical reaction. It gives you strength and it gives you agility. But these days, physical reactions are not a solution to stress. Or if you have a problem that has no solution for 6 months, financial, legal, any of these problems that has no solution for 6 months, you will have stress during that period and you fail test number 16. Test number 16, if you have a problem without a solution, you fail test number 16. We all need support systems. As human beings, one of the most difficult things during this lockdown period is the fact that we are unable to meet our friends and our family. We all need support systems. You need someone whose shoulder you can lean on. You need someone who you can turn to with your problems. You need someone who can help you to solve your problems. If it's a legal problem, you need your lawyer. A financial problem, you need your banker. An emotional problem, you need your family. But if you are without support systems, if you do not have somebody that you can turn to when you have a problem, if you do not have somebody that you can turn to, then You will fail test number 17 by virtue of the fact that you have no support systems. I now move to test number 18. We all believe that sleep is an unimportant part of our lives, but understand this: when you sleep, your entire body system moves down. You move down from, your pulse rate drops from about 70 pulse rates to about 50 pulse rate. Your respiration drops. Your brain waves drop. While you are awake, you have beta brain waves at 48 cycles per second. While you sleep, you have delta and theta brain waves, which are 4 cycles per second. And when this happens, the body releases growth hormone. It releases hormones that help to heal the body, healing hormones. And sleep is so important for good health. It is nature's method to cure all your ills during the night while you sleep. You need 8 hours of sleep. If you cannot get 8 hours of sleep, or if you do not have 8 hours of sleep, and you certainly have less than 7 or 6 hours of sleep, you fail this test. It doesn't matter whether you sleep for 2 hours in the afternoon or 6 hours in the day. That makes up to 8 hours. That's good enough for me. A siesta is not a bad thing. So 8 hours of sleep in a day means that you will have passed this test. Now, what was once considered the biggest health impediment in the world, smoking, is today still a major factor in the causation of disease. If you smoke, certainly your risk of cancer rises at 60%. We are talking about test number 19. Your risk of cancer rises at about 60%. But not only that, by your smoking, the environmental factors will put your child at risk, and your child could become an addict to smoking in later years. You do not want to smoke at home under any circumstances. There is a lot of conflicting research about alcohol. Of course, in the Middle East, in the Mediterranean, we say that wine is excellent, and of course it is. It contains flavonoids, and other such things that are good for the heart and good for the blood, but all within limitations. And the limitation is, do not drink every day. Do not exceed 2 drinks a day on any occasion. If you can maintain those stringent rules, you will pass this test, otherwise you fail. So I'm going to encapsulate test number 19. Test number 19 is simple enough. If you smoke, you fail. If you drink alcohol and exceed the limits of 1 unit, a glass of wine, a glass of beer, or 1 drink, if you exceed that too often, if you exceed it at 2 every day, you fail. I leave this to your discretion. Give yourself a pass or a fail mark on test number 19. We now have test number 20, and that is the final test. The final test number 20, safety above all else, safety at all times. I'm talking about automobile safety. The biggest killer of young people in the world today is the automobile. You have to have safety at all times. And I mean safety in all areas of recreational activity. And that includes many hazardous activities. But nevertheless, if you adhere to the rules of safety, if you are safety conscious all the time, every time, you pass this test. That would mean wearing seat belts. That would mean using non-safety, non-slip rugs at home. That would mean holding on to the railing when you're stepping down the staircase, and so on and so forth. Now, you will have completed 20 tests. And now is the time for reckoning to find out exactly how well we are. Add up all the tests that you have passed. It'll take you a minute. Add up all the tests that you have passed. And remember the little notation at the bottom. These tests are indicative. They do not replace a medical check. These tests are indicative, but they are 90% indicative. They are a true reflection of your lifestyle and your health. Now, if you have scored anything between 17 to 20 points, It means that your health is above 85%. Your health score is above 85%. You are exceedingly well. You are very well. Only 15% of the people in the world have these health ratios. Congratulations. Your answer to the question, how are you, is I am very well. Now, if you have scored between 13 to 16 points, it would mean that your health score is above 65%, and it goes up to about 84%. The answer to the question, how are you, in your case is, I am well. A little bit here and a little bit there, and you can improve your health. But if you have passed only 12 to 10 tests, between 10 and 12 tests, your health score is between 50 and 64. It means that 50% of your body systems are malfunctioning or are dysfunctional. At any rate, your lifestyle is all wrong by 50%. Your answer to the question, how are you, is I am not well. I am not well. Thank you. I am not well. Now, in case you have passed less than 9 tests, it would then mean that you have scored less than 50 in lifestyle, you have scored less than 50 in health evaluation. You are at high risk for getting lifestyle-related ailments, hypertension, diabetes, arthritis, obesity, etc. in future years. Now, how does this correlate with your age? We have discovered that your true age depends upon your body condition. So if you have scored above 85% or your points are between 20 and 17, you may minus 5 years from your age, keeping 25 as the minimum age, which means you can be as young as 20 years. Those of us who are already 25, you can reduce by 5 years, but those who are 20 and below, well, you remain at the age that you are. But for the rest of us who have scored between 20 and 17 points, you may minus 5 years from your age. Your body condition is better than your chronological age. If you are between 13 to 16 points and scored between 65 to 84, your age and your date of birth are the same. Well done. You can do better, but well done. Now we come to the rest of us who have not done so well. If your health score is between 50 to 64, or the points that you have scored are less than 12 and up to 10, you are actually older than you are. You have what is known as the accelerated aging syndrome. You need to improve your health. And finally, in case you have fared very badly and you're less than 50% functional, scoring less than 10 or 9 in these tests, you have an accelerated aging syndrome and you are far older than you are. Now, you may imagine that this is a statement made lightly. It is not. There are many individuals who at 60 have not had hypertension or diabetes, and there are many at 40 who have already had a heart attack. The truth is that the 40-year-old is perhaps 60, and the 60-year-old is perhaps 40. Now, that brings me to the end of my test today, and my colleague from Atlanta, that would be Kalpana, will be coming in to take over from me. But I want to thank you all very much for having participated in these tests. And do not be angry with me in case you haven't done well, but you may get in touch with me to help you, to help you to improve. Thank you so much. And thank you, Kalpana, for coming back.
Thank you very much, Adrian. That was a good exercise indeed. And I am glad I answered your question correctly when you asked me, how are you? I am very well, because I did do very well on your test. And that was the answer I gave you. In fact, I've already taken the liberty of minusing 5 years from my birth certificate, and I'm happy to be back here. So thank you very much for doing that for us. Appreciate it. So to come on next, I'd like to welcome Johnny Paul. He's Windia House, batch of 1970. I think you all know Johnny very well. He is the president of our Old Laurentian Association that brings you and the OL community these events every month, and so much more, actually. Welcome, Johnny. Please unmute your mic and take it away. John, you would have to unmute your mic. I think you're still muted. We can't hear you, John, if you're speaking.
Okay, sorry about that, Kalpana.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
I was trying to do it on top. It couldn't. It was
No,
not.
you're good. You're good.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Hi, Adrian. I think I wouldn't have probably done as well as Kalpana on your tests. Okay. Yeah. So thank you for all of you for being here. And I must say that over the past 6 months, our number of viewership has been going up very well. I think the last OL Nation crossed 20,000 views. Keep it going. So last Monday, I was up at Lovedale and Ooty also. I went up to Ooty to register the Old Laurentians Foundation, which will be basically handling those donations that you may give us, and it will go to the school. So the headmaster of Lawrence School will be a permanent trustee on this foundation. So once the papers are ready, I will let you know. This is what we had committed in the last AGM, and has gone well. While at Lovedale, discussing with the headmaster, I was really happy to know that the number of applications, or at least the inquiries for coming into Lawrence School, Lovedale, has gone up considerably. And he feels that our events have contributed to this, because the Lawrence School, Lovedale, was not very well known, especially in the North India. When you said Lawrence School, it was always Sanawa. But now Lovedale has also taken its place in the sun. I don't want to waste your time. I will get the headmaster on as soon as this is over. And thank you very much. There you are, Mr. Prabharan is online. Welcome, sir. You need to unmute.
Done. Hope you can hear me.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. First of all, thank you very much for that nice introduction, Johnny. I must tell you, first of all, before going that, I would like to thank Professor Adrian Kennedy. I'm not very well. I'm okay. I'm well. I'm trying my level best to be very well. Very informative and very, very thought-provoking ideas. First of all, not many people in today's world invest on welfare and well-being. Very often, a very competitive, materialistic world in terms of adult, in terms of students, marks, grades, achievements, and placements. And in this is mad rush of catching up with all these, somewhere down the line, we slip out from very well to unwell situation. It's something which someone like me who into education should impart this to my students also. Thank you very much. To start with. Second is that about OL Nation. It has been a very, very inspiring event. I have got a lot of positive feedback from students. Continue, keep doing it. Even after this, the pandemic over, even after this crisis is over, we look forward to these sessions, which are very informative as well as thought-provoking. So that is something. Back to the school, there is light at the end of the tunnel. The situation in Nilgiris in Tamil Nadu is improving. Especially in Nilgiris, the number has gone down. The COVID care center, which we were supporting the local administration, is moved out last month itself. Fumigations and sanitations are all done. Now we are waiting for students to come. Now, today, tomorrow, there is going to be an announcement from the state government that they're going to take a call by December end or by January. The schools are going to be partially opened, if not complete, fully. Some of the schools in North India, like Uttarakhand, Himachal, and UP and all, is opening next week. And by and large, the board is very clear. CBSE board is very clear that they're going ahead with the board examination for the next academic year. The date sheets not yet come, but there is a lot of positivity here, and we are waiting for that. And as far as schools, other issues are concerned, schools are going on pretty well. Occasional showers and the effect of the cyclones are not that much, but still rains and cold weather is sometime continues, as Lovedale is known for that. Our first round of aptitude analysis, that is for the admission, is done, and we've got a lot of positive signals. A lot of children have taken part, and considering that, we are giving one more window, that is sometime next month we'll decide. Maybe in January we'll be offering one more test, that is aptitude test for 5th, 6th, and 11th. 7, 8, 9, and all completely full, and the withdrawal from school for the past few years have come down, and registration is going up. And something nice about the situation is that in spite of the pandemic and also the crisis situation, we felt that it might affect our admissions and intake of students, but so far we are better off. And there is no other specific points at the moment. Our half-yearly examination CA2 is over. Now we are back. We have given a short break from the online classes, and after that we are back. Now classes are going on. We are waiting for the positive report from the government to reopen as early as possible. And of course, it's a pleasure to be a part of your great community, a legacy of 162 years. Keep going, and looking forward to meet some of you when you're coming this way. The doors of Lovedale will be always open for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for that very nice update. And not just for that, but for everything else that you do for our beloved school. We are truly grateful. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So let me introduce you to two more of our speakers and panelists. The first is, many of you might remember the kind-hearted Mr. Gundurao from our school days. And the next speaker is his daughter, Dr. Sujatha Ramesh, Champak House, batch of 1975. She's a pediatric allergy and immunology consultant. After being awarded the President's Medal from our school, she graduated from Stanley Medical College and completed her residency and fellowship at the State University of New York in Buffalo. She also has served as an associate professor at SUNY Buffalo and is a consultant at Columbia Asia Hospital in Bangalore. Sujatha specializes in pediatric allergy disorders such as asthma, food allergies, and many other allergic disorders. She has presented for over 100 invited lectures and has several publications and peer-reviewed international journals. Her research interests include prevention and management of asthma, food allergies, and the impact of urbanization in lifestyle changes. Her other areas of interest is the evaluation of recurrent infection and primary immune deficiency diseases. Sujatha is a fellow of both the American Academy and the American College of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology, along with being a diplomat of the American Board of Allergy and Immunology and the American Board of Pediatrics. So obviously very well accomplished. She has received many awards, grants, including a Fulbright scholarship and a research grant for the Centers for Disease Control here in Atlanta. Speaking along with Sujatha, you will have Shrradha Sidhwani, Arvoli House, batch of 1999, who's a clinical psychologist. She's majored in physiology and psychology from the University of Melbourne in Australia, received a master's in psychology with a major of clinical psychology from the University of Mumbai, is a trained rational emotive behavioral therapist from Albert Ellis Institute in New York. Shrradha is also specialized in cognitive behavioral therapist and is certified as one of India's first tobacco-trained specialists from the Mayo Clinic here in USA. She has conducted workshops and training courses in schools, colleges, and corporate organizations for students, teachers, counselors, and doctors. She uses all her training and knowledge to treat and address anger-related disorders, phobias, depression, marital discord, parenting, handling children of behavioral, emotional, and social issues, and family counseling. Her areas of expertise include all that has been mentioned, and the prime focus is in the field of mental and behavioral health. And coming back with Shrradha and Sujatha is Professor Adrian Kennedy, who's be back as a panelist and moderator for the next session. Sujatha, Shrradha, and Adrian, welcome, and please unmute your mics and take it away.
Thank you.
I think we've lost Adrian. So Sujatha, you could start your presentation.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Kalpana, for that kind introduction. I probably am going to start, go ahead with a presentation. I know Adrian had done a wonderful job pointing out the problem, and I don't know how many of us have failed miserably. I think it's important to see why this is so, understand how this is so, and then take action. So let's see why, how, and then I'm sure Shraddha is going to motivate us to take action and do something about it. So what I'm going to do is to just put this on slideshow for a second. Yeah. What I'm going to do is to briefly go over a set of, can you all see this? Are you able to see the slides?
It's clear.
Okay, great. So we know that allergic disease has increased significantly. I think when we were in school, we hardly heard of allergies. And now I understand there's quite a few children with asthma, allergies, and especially it manifests when they run, they get breathless, chronic cough. We see an increase in food allergies and allergic rhinitis. You see this child sniffing. And if you remember way back in prep school, I'm sure Mrs. Enos always told us that we should use a handkerchief. We forgot the kerchief part and used our hand, sniffing and dribbling. Maybe we had allergic rhinitis. Food allergies has also increased a lot. So let's look at how diet, lifestyle impact this and what we can do to prevent these diseases. When we think of allergic disease, we classically just think of sneezing. Oh, doc, my allergies are just driving me crazy. Oh my God, look at this rash. But the spectrum is much wider. And these are the atopic conditions or allergic conditions. And you see that food allergy and childhood eczema has its onset very early. The good news is most of these resolve by the time the child is 2 or certainly by 5 years of age. Asthma seems to be a lot more persistent. And you have the allergic rhinitis and now a lot of food allergies and also the eosinophilic or the GI related food allergies. What we need to kind of look at is how can we prevent progression of these disorders and where do we intervene? What are the risk factors? We very well know the effects of tobacco smoke, pollutants, and indoor allergens. But let's focus on the mechanism how lifestyle changes such as obesity, diet, and decreased activity impact the development of these diseases. And on the lower pink boxes, you can see other very critical intervention areas as well as things which facilitate or inhibit the development of these diseases. A lot of focus now, you've heard, on the exposure to sunlight, vitamin D deficiencies causing increased allergic diseases, and the role of antioxidants and flavonoids. I was trained by Dr. Elliot Middleton, the most wonderful allergist many, many years back, who really observed the role of this and probably is the father of all of these, the role of flavonoids and quercetin and so on in development of these diseases. This is a very interesting slide, and I just love this, very educational. It was noted that the incidence of deaths due to infectious disease dramatically decreased once there was this discovery of penicillin and vaccinations. But unfortunately, you can see that asthma started showing itself and increased, suddenly shot up, increased twofolds. Now, if we look, these allergic diseases, many varieties have increased enormously, almost tenfold. And why is this so? Why is this shift happening? What is happening to the immune system? It's well observed that allergy and asthma is less common in rural areas all over the world, many studies. And here you see the city of Mumbai, the modern metro, compared to a village in India. The woman is living in close proximity to her livestock. And if you look at her hut, It is plastered with cow dung. No kidding, no BS, but it's cow dung. So what's so special? This is very rich in endotoxin. What is endotoxin? Endotoxin is the outer cell wall of bacteria. And it's found to stimulate the immune system and interacts with a variety of very primitive and defense receptors called the toll-like and many, many other receptors. And it actually skews the immune system towards protection. And it protects you from bacterial infections, etc. And it helps your immunity to do the right thing. And this is what we talk about rather than go the wrong way, which is blocked off, which is cancer, allergies, and other diseases. And optimal stimulation helps to protect you. This is what we talk about epigenetic modification, genetics and epigenetics. So even if you have a tendency to develop these diseases, you can modify it. And that's really very encouraging. Indoor allergens with modern living, you can see that there's a really increased concentration and severity of these exposures. And I'm sure you love my little friend, the cockroach, as well as the mighty dust mite. And many of us these days are not grandparents, but we have grand cats or grand dogs. So what about the outdoor pollutants or outdoor pollens? Now, in urban dwellings or the urban atmosphere, because of climate change and dryness and so on, and increased environmental temperatures, the allergens are released much more. So the pollens are much meaner. And not only that, to add insult to injury, these pollens form chemicals, form compounds with chemicals such as automobile emissions, the diesel particles, the respirable latex particles from tires on a hot, humid day. And allergens are much more profound, actually, given the relative lack of the, the vegetation. Despite that, these allergens are much more severe when compared to the rural areas. The bane of our existence, childhood obesity. You have little Tommy there being rewarded for being quiet while mama does her work. Tossed out of the window, literally, is a childhood that we experience with sunshine, running around in these beautiful green fields, exercise, a good healthy diet, maybe picking a couple of strawberries or Hilgo hours up when we sneaked out to Big Hill, and being fed what I know was the school food, a lot of spuds and bread baked in our own school bakery with yeast and no chemicals. Food, Dr. Adrian mentioned a lot about processed foods, which something that we need to address. And poor parenting under stressful conditions really contributes a lot more. And here you have my little champion. Mama is so proud of him, his little chubby cheeks, and says, "Doctor, he doesn't have an appetite, doesn't eat a thing." You wonder why. So these factors actually cause inflammation in the system. And as you remember the slide that I showed before, actually modifies the genes towards inflammation, towards ill health, towards allergies and other conditions, disease conditions. Looking at food allergies, these are some of the common food allergens in childhood. And you hear a lot about peanut allergies, which is kind of the model that I will use to describe what is happening in terms of a study of the effect of all of this on the immune system. And I'd like to present a little case. This is my first case as an allergy immunology fellow. So a 9-month-old Vietnamese child was found to have sudden onset of respiratory failure. The child developed wheezing, difficulty breathing, and turned blue within a few seconds. He was brought into the emergency room. And because the doctors found that the 2-year-old sibling was playing near him, they figured this child may have put a foreign body into this little child. And to their surprise, they found that the entire throat, entire larynx was collapsed shut. So here I walk in, the allergy immunology fellow, just into my fellowship, day 1. So I said, anaphylaxis, give some epinephrine. And boom, you have this representation of a child with a severe allergic reaction with swollen eyes, shut lips swollen, the rash which is spread, obviously having some difficulty breathing here. And within a few seconds, you see this reaction resolved. Well, I thought I knew it all. But life has taught me that it's much more complex. So you have a variety of reactions from very severe to, in childhood, you see a lot, commonly you see childhood eczema or atopic dermatitis. In about a third of these patients, it's due to food allergies, most commonly milk and egg, and sometimes peanuts, and combination of all of this. A lot of these children are prone to at risk for developing asthma. And the good news, as I said, most of this eczema does resolve once you address the food allergy issues. Not all allergens are so obvious. Sometimes they're hidden. Sometimes the sensitizers sneaked into food that we don't know. A lot of times when things are added to make something more nutritious, for example, if you take a simple chapati atta, the wheat flour, I don't know what parents add because they think it's good for you. They add nuts, they add almond flour, they add soy, they add chickpeas flour, and so on. Now, baked goods has a lot of sensitizers, especially if you're allergic to eggs and nuts, and you have a lot of sesame and so on, which are sensitizing foods, I would say. Never trust anything that's eggless, especially if you're egg allergic. There have been many incidents of even fatalities when somebody thought there was no egg, ate it, and some children have actually died because it's not labeled and people don't tell you what there is. Beware of gravies. Most mothers and grandmothers sneak in all sorts of things like almond and cashew nut and so on. And flavoring agents are also, in an allergy-prone individual, you have to find out what there is. For example, anchovies in Caesar salad, or fish oil in shrimp paste, and so on. Peanuts added or peanut flour added for flavoring. In Maharashtra, they use senga for a lot of things, and so on. It's interesting to find out what the regional cuisines are and what is used as traditional foods and what is added. I'm not going to get into dyes and preservatives. It's a whole other topic. And anything that's natural may actually be quite unnatural, at least as a food. Just to throw some trivia in, and this was the case of a mother who had a child who'd go into repeated anaphylaxis, and we found that every time she kind of went out, it seemed to happen. So we looked into what could she have eaten. Really didn't find anything consistent. So what's common between these cherries, the toppings, and the dessert, and this lipstick? The answer, my friends, are not blowing in the wind, but it's growing on this cactus. This is actually the cochineal beetle, which secretes a red dye, which is used as food coloring several times. Not very appetizing. So how can we prevent the development of these diseases? Do we feed our children dirt? Do we feed them and improve their gut health, which is very, very important? I was reading articles and a lot of research is done, you won't believe it, on fecal transplant. I wouldn't stoop so low. I'd rather change my diet and rather change the diet of infants. Instead of giving processed baby food, maybe we can switch over, as Adrian was saying, to fresh food. How about probiotics? There's a whole science. How about anti-inflammatories, flavonoids, and so on? And my grandmother used to give me yogurt every day. I think we have a lot of food habits which are pretty healthy and time-tested. If we were to intervene, we have to intervene very early in the antenatal period itself. Breastfeeding is recommended very highly, and we have to look at infant feeding practices. So I'm going to sort of leave you with this slide. And how do we develop tolerance? How can we tolerate these and not develop allergies or other disease for that matter? If you look, the gut is one organ which processes the maximum number of allergens every single day. And an infant learns to swallow even before the child is born. The child learns to swallow before the child learns to breathe. So your intervention has to be done very early, and the gut seems to be the key to sort of see how we can intervene very early and modify this process. Now, there are a lot of protective things such as the acid pH, the enzymes, the secretory IgA, that's the immunoglobulins. And actually, if you look, these cells are very tight and they're called tight junction. They do not allow any allergen to penetrate an intact gut. The allergen instead is sent to where it's supposed to be, received by the M cell, and then processed here, the T regulatory cells. These cells actually welcome these allergens and then sends them to the Peyer's patches, which you remember from your biology days. That's very rich in lymphoid tissue and a lot of education happens. So these educated cells then go to the lymph nodes and they go to the system and they behave. On the other hand, if you have cells which gain direct access through a leaky gut, then they become immunogenic. So what are the factors which help protect? One of the very important things is the microbiome. That is your gut bacteria. Friendly bacteria help. These are, the biodiverse rich bacteria. So it's important to improve gut health. Prevent inflammation. The structure and nature of the allergens are also very important. Processing actually alters the allergen and makes it immunogenic. And let me just end this. We can talk more about it if you're interested, but I was just looking. So what kind of a message do I leave you with? And what you see, these big fields are land races, germplasm cultivars, the last of the biodiverse original rice strain. So we're losing our biodiversity. And medicine is not just about the doctor, the prescription, and the patient. It's much bigger. It's much bigger. It involves governance. It involves, all of us are actively participating. It involves preserving of the environment and so on. And what better place but Lovedale? The pristine environment, the exercise, running up and down, the happy, carefree lives. I think it's something we need to get back to. And we've had a wonderful opportunity to have experienced that childhood and have pretty healthy immune systems. So thank you so much. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah. Shrradha, I'm sorry, we have just 5 minutes before Shrradha comes in, but I'd like to quickly run to Doc Sujatha and ask her a few questions. Doc Sujatha, you spoke about obesity, childhood obesity, and allergy. Now, obesity per se is not an allergen. So what is the relationship between childhood obesity or obesity per se and allergy? What is the connection?
Okay, thank you. Actually, as I mentioned, obesity induces these pro-inflammatory or these chemicals which skew the body, the immune system towards developing allergy. Now, when you talk about obesity, I think it's tied into lack of activity as well as poor diet, poor conditioning. So perception of breathing is definitely more intense, the difficulty breathing. Also, once these children have lost weight, then asthma resolves quite a bit. So there's a lot of complex factors involved in this.
So, Dr. Sujatha, I have a question, which is, of course, related to my field. Since you're talking about asthma and allergies, we've seen the rates of stress go up very high right now. How would stress, would it elevate the levels of allergies and asthma?
Yes, that's a very interesting question, and thank you. Definitely, stress has a great bearing on disease expression, also disease creation, as you're very well aware of. Now, if it's just an acute stress, the body can deal with it, but it's this chronic stress which again favors inflammation. Secondly, a significant amount of depression associated with asthma, more so than any other disease, not even cancer. So that's an area which needs to be addressed. And thirdly, I find that especially teenagers and a lot of young adults are so stressed, they've actually forgotten how to breathe. They are walking around, I don't know, with their vocal cords just clamped down. So we have to teach them to relax. So yes, stress is a very major factor, not just in the development, but also in dealing with, and we should address the non-medical component of it, I think, to a larger extent before just giving them medicines, excessive medicines.
Dr. Sujatha, you know, a frightening slide that you brought up showed a whole lot of foods, natural foods. I'm talking about wheat and peanuts and milk and things like that, natural foods, but yet they come onto your allergen list. Now, under those circumstances, how do we manage this?
I think not everybody is allergic to it. So what we have to look at, who are the children at risk for developing allergies, and then intervene at that point and see what can be done. So it's not everybody who has it, but these are amongst the list of childhood allergies, these are the top allergens. I think it has a lot to do with it, timing, nature of the allergen, the structure, you know, how you feed children. There are a whole lot of factors which are involved.
I'm a big fan of your subject, Doc Sujatha. I'll tell you why, because I was at the table one day and my wife collapsed from a food allergy. Could you believe that? We didn't quite know why she couldn't breathe, and we took her immediately to the hospital, and it was one of those allergies that you speak about. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Sujatha, you know, I would like to hear your story, your journey. What got you so interested in this?
Well, as you all may know, my journey started in school. My father, Mr. Gundurao, was my best teacher, of course, amongst all my other wonderful teachers. But I spent a lot of time with him, and I had the unique opportunity of not just being in school and getting everything out of school, but also going back home. So learning happened every moment, and it was done in a very fun way. Observing the trees, knowing about plants. So that's helped me a lot in understanding allergens. And then I went on to train in Railway Hospital, great peers there, and then to the University of Buffalo Children's Hospital. Amazing journey. I trained with the best. I trained with people who wrote textbooks. But one thing their message was, what did you do for the patient? So what's driven me and what keeps me going is what I have learned from patients and also their parents and their families who've trusted me to take care. It's a big responsibility. But I want to tell you one little story. Okay, so I know we never give in. I think we should follow our passions and we just keep doing something. But one story I'd like to tell you, I was kind of out of touch with Lovedale for a bit in my own world. And when I gave to Bangladesh, I had been invited to give a lecture, food allergies again. And as I was speaking, what happened was right from next to me, my entire pouch with my passport, OCI card, the works, including the money, the visa arrival, everything was disappeared, stolen. And here I was stuck. The only connection I had was that last minute Wi-Fi, sent a WhatsApp group, and within seconds, my classmate Joe Katukar called me, and this is what he said. I didn't want to ask anybody because nobody I was just stranded over there. He said, Sujatha, can I help you? Do you need money? And he took care of me. So that's my little comeback to love day. So when there is no hope, never give in, there's a Laurentian who will always bail you out and who will always guide you. Like Professor Kennedy is telling us a lot of good stuff and things that we need to do and helped us focus on our health. So never give in. Thank you, Shraddha.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Sujatha. And now, Shraddha, we come to you, if you don't mind. You know, physical well-being seems to be an easy thing to do. You do a little bit of exercise and heavens, you're okay. Mental well-being, now that's a different story. Behavior therapy, changing the way we behave. Oh, heavens, those are complicated things. Could you enlighten us a little bit on this?
Sure, Professor Adrian. I'm a person who hears stories. I believe that sharing is healing. So I'm going to start off with my story. So I walked into Lovedale from a very affluent, conservative, Sindhi joint family where the role of the woman was extremely restricted. So my move to Lovedale was rebellious. I was an adolescent. I was a girl who walked in an 11th standard. And Lovedale inculcated certain principles of self-discipline, independence, But most importantly, it gave me the power to think, the freedom to think about my dream. Post Lovedale, it was very obvious that my family would want me to get married. But breaking the society norms, the conditional norms, I took off to Australia for an undergraduate degree. Uh, Having seen mental health issues in the family, seeing the stigma that was associated with it back then and even now, I was very curious to know as to why people behaved the way they did, and why were some of them targeted. So on my journey back to India to do my master's in clinical psychology, I took up a project in an AIDS organization. It was an international project. And through all these years, I've seen that the pain, the hurt, the anger, the trauma which patients come with. I work with a psychiatrist, Dr. Anjali Chabria, who's one of the most inspiring women Indian psychiatrists. And I realized that there's a lot of work to be done, and I kept believing in myself. Mental health is still something that we don't talk about. People still shy to come into the clinic. Of course, the pandemic has changed a lot. People are now coming and saying that it is okay not to be okay. We see a lot more people coming in right now. We all know that the levels of anxiety, depression are on the rise all over the world. And we are currently, as WHO has pointed out, we're looking at a mental health pandemic post the COVID pandemic. So I think it is very important to destigmatize the entire field and to realize, most of us tend to react in certain ways. Coping strategies have changed. So, right now, if you see a lot of young adults, the coping mechanisms are basically based on addiction. So you're either using alcohol, you're using tobacco, there's a lot of drug abuse, and this is a form of numbing your thoughts, of numbing the pain. Most people tend to become very aggressive. They are dominating, they're bullying, and some of us shut down into a depression. They become passive. And I think what therapy is sort of teaching everybody is, have that assertive communication, build your communication strategies, engage in the conflict resolution, bridge the gap between your relationships. I think what in the last couple of months we've seen with the U.S. election, there's a lot of narcissism being spoken about. Leaders establishing that they know it all, and I think what we are looking today is a transition to a more empathetic, compassionate, and acceptance of society. So we are looking at unconditional acceptance of the self and of the others. We must see that over time, we have become very conditional. We become very judgmental. We are criticizing a lot more. We are judging ourselves as well. And constantly people, regardless of their age, regardless of their gender, the social status or their positions, walk in and say, I don't feel good enough. And so I think we are constantly living in this whole fear of how to be good enough. And I think that acceptance, the self-acceptance is not there. So a lot of well-being, happiness is related to this unconditional self-acceptance, moving away from the perfectionist attitude and allowing yourself to make mistakes, allowing ourselves to fail. So most people coming from the army and navy background, we know there's a lot of fear. We know there's fear when we walk into the battlefield. There is a lot of fear of losing your life. There's a lot of fear about how the family will cope once you're gone. So some amount of concern, sadness is a normal emotion. And today, mental health looks at, unhealthy emotions and healthy emotions. So we are trying to move in an era where we're looking at healing people, getting them more healthy, and we are destigmatizing it from depression, anxiety, or personality disorders. And so I think I want to end with a quote from the very famous psychologist called Albert Ellis, the institution that I've trained in. And he often said that people need to have the courage to change what they can, to accept what you can't, and to find wisdom between the two, find the difference between the two. So I think once you get that, I think you let go. You let go of the control. You let go of your anger. And I think you heal.
Shraddha, you have quoted one of my favorite quotations, and that is to change the things I can and to accept those things that I can't. I'm also ever so touched by Doc Sujatha, as well as your never given stories.
Thank you.
Very, very personal. And I must tell you that Florence Nightingale is doing well. Today, we have two fabulous Florence Nightingales on our panel, yeah, as compared to a single me. Thank you very much. However, you've spoken so much about the various stresses that we as adults have. My own research tells me that our children probably have as much, if not more, stress than us, and especially with trying to keep up with the peers, trying to excel in their studies and things like that. How do we teach our children, or how do we manage stress in children? How do we do that?
That's very important today because of the lockdown. We have seen that we all are restricted to environments. There's a lot of change of lifestyle. I think Professor Adrian, here I want to just point out is that often enough children don't have a feeling vocabulary. So we don't teach our children. I don't remember learning this in school, that, it's okay to fail. It's okay to be fearful. So I think what's very, very important from the very beginning, I'm a mother of two children, and that's what I tell my children, use the vocabulary, use words, the feeling words, the hurt, the shame, the embarrassment. And I think what parents need to today realize, it is an era of collaboration rather than control. So I think we need to collaborate more. We need to give them more freedom. I mean, of course, the internet has given us enormous freedom. So, children have that exposure. Back in the days, we didn't have it. We didn't have it in Lawrence as well. So I think we need to be giving them freedom and at the same time giving them the value so that they can be responsible enough. So it's freedom versus responsibility. So we have most kids going abroad and, some of them going into drugs or alcohol. But I think when there is a strong value system, it will work well.
Shrradha, I want to go back to something that everybody is facing right now.
Yep.
That is the loneliness, especially not just the adults and the many people who are dying alone, but also I think children with lack of interaction between their peers, not playing. How can we cope with and how do we deal with that?
Dr. Sujatha, that's definitely true. I think not only with death, but we have seen a lot of loneliness with the COVID isolation, with the quarantine. Like you rightly said, it is not only our seniors, but the Generation Z, as we call it, they are extremely lonely right now, constantly on their gadgets. I think what we need to do, one very important tip that I can give is develop a ritual, a ritual to connect to people. So, you can leave out some time from your online schooling, or people who are living alone, working from home can develop a ritual to connect to their friends on the weekend. Nowadays it's happening on the Zoom calls. So develop a ritual of connectivity. The second thing that I would like to say is you can create in loneliness. So in confinement, you tend to get very creative. You catch up on things, you learn a new skill, you read a lot. And I think that would work as well. So creativity in your confinement is very important here.
I still need to get back to that one question, and that is, how do we manage mental well-being? Can you give us a few suggestions?
So, Professor Adrian, there is a very, very famous psychotherapist called Dr. Martin Seligman. He was heading the American Psychological Association, and he gave us something called, he's the founder of positive psychology, and gave us something called the PERMA, which is PERMA, which is very closely associated to karma. And PERMA basically highlights the role of positive emotions, engagement, maintaining relationships, developing your competence, so constantly building up, creating growth. Of course, all this requires a lot of effort. A depressed person finds it very difficult to engage, to create, or to connect. So you have to, so somebody who's going through depression or anxiety would require therapy. But for a normal person, just moving on with your accomplishments, also connecting to people, relationships is extremely important here.
Shrradha, a lot is said about how to cope with children, and you've given some strategies for the school children. I think most of us probably did not do very well in the psychosocial domain. It's because of living and the way we live. So what tips would you suggest? What are the key tips, just some take-home tips for us on how to have or create or set up this for mental well-being?
So like I said, I think we need to move away from the perfectionist society that we are in. We need to realize that it is okay to make mistakes. We are human beings. We are fallible. We make mistakes. Also, Dr. Sujatha, I would like to highlight here, Professor Kennedy had spoken about the type A personality, who are very harsh on themselves. And they tend to have this self-downing attitude. We are very demanding on ourselves as well at times. So in this rat race of achieving and accomplishments, I think we need to realize that at the end of the day, we can give ourselves a break. Be a little more compassionate to yourself, allow yourself to engage, build those relationships, and take a breather. You spoke about taking the oxygen. So I think take a breather at the end of the day.
How can we be more compassionate? I think we've become very selfish as a society.
Yeah. So we've
ourselves, but also to others. How can we make this a habit?
Right. So Dr. Sujatha, in the last couple of months, what psychology has today started focusing on something called compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue was earlier discussed when people went through crisis in cases of emergency. And, this was mostly associated with doctors and nurses. However, today we are seeing compassion fatigue in every house. And compassion fatigue is basically losing your empathy, losing your tolerance. So we become very, very intolerant as a society. The frustration levels are very high. People are awfulizing a lot more. They feel everything is going to come to an end. So I think objectively, we need to see what is the worst case scenario. We're going to survive through this. And what worked in the past. When you talk about even grief, I lost my dad a couple of years back through cancer. And, you can heal by giving death some kind of meaning. Now, my meaning to that was, of course, doing the tobacco cessation course. And that gave me a lot of, purpose. That gave my father's death some purpose and meaning. So I think we can get compassionate by just allowing ourselves to be mindful. A lot has been spoken about mindfulness through the last couple of months. Mindfulness is just being aware. Walking into nature is extremely helpful. Being aware of your breath. I think yoga has taken a huge leap with mindfulness. There are a lot of studies which have been done, which are saying yoga is very, very helpful. And I think, just simply accept what is inevitable.
We have 5 minutes before Kalpana comes on to ask us her questions. So I'm just wondering if between us we can exchange a few questions about the totality
Professor
of
Kennedy,
what we've spoken about.
Professor Kennedy, I have a question for you. You spoke about lifestyle medicine. Could you define that for us?
Okay, lifestyle medicine. Lifestyle medicine deals with your day-to-day activities, your sleep, your exercise, the food you eat, the habits you have, could be smoking or whatever, your day-to-day activities and the effect it has on your health. Now, we know that if you were to look at the cardiac ailment, well, then beyond the hypertension, diabetes, and hypercholesteremia, you have obesity, you have a sedentary life, you have smoking, you have stress. So lifestyle is your day-to-day activities that result in the diseases you have, and the utilization of lifestyle change, managing your weight, managing your stress, doing your exercise, quitting smoking in order to alleviate the lifestyle ailment. I imagine that would be a good definition.
Well, Adrian,
Yes.
you've proved that you're younger than all of us with your enthusiasm, and I know your exercise every day. So tell us, I know you were a star athlete. So can you share some of your inspiring moments in school, at work, and life? Tell us your level.
Oh, now that was a question I was hoping would never be asked, but I'm glad you did. I have to, what shall I say, confront my reality. And I'm grateful to that extent to Shrradha when she said that we have to forgive ourselves if we fail. I agree with you on that. Well, thank you very much. I'm one of those failures in a matter of speaking, and thank you for allowing me to forgive myself. But as a consequence of early failure, I was not considered, it was thought that I would not be successful in my senior Cambridge exams, and I was not allowed to sit for the Cambridge exam in the school with which I was. And I then moved on to do the Cambridge exam in another school. I got a first class. I then went on to do 8 degrees in my postgrad study and ended up with a PhD. So that is one aspect of my Never Given story. You know, the 3 words that I picked up from Lovedale, that has been the story of my life is never given, by and large. But I have a little more to say. You know, when I was a young sports person, I thought to myself, well, I've done badly in life up to now, you know, not so good in school and things. I've got to do something to delight my parents. And I decided, well, if I'm a talented sports person, let's do that. And not only was I a school champion and a college champion and a university champion, I went on with perseverance. Remember the Never Given words. I went on with perseverance to become a national champion and a nation champion, and then later helped to organize events like the Commonwealth Games and so on. And my Never Given story doesn't end there. Well, it can carry on forever, but that's what it is. You know, when I was a young executive, I decided I had to be the CEO. And as luck would have it, I've been the CEO a couple of times. So Never Given was a story that has been imbibed in my soul. And thank you so much for it.
Professor Kennedy, in my language, that would be called resilient. You would be high on a resilient scale. You know, resilient is rising away above the adversities of your life. So,
thank you.
Yeah, I just want to come back to my question on lifestyle medicine. You know, you gave us the definition. What would be some of the components that you would define in terms of lifestyle medication?
Well, the components of lifestyle, the very first thing would be evaluation. So we have already done in a manner of speaking, we've already done one evaluation. I evaluated the different aspects of each of our lifestyles. That is number one. You evaluate an individual's lifestyle to find out which areas is he at risk. Is he sleeping enough? Is he doing enough exercise? Is he eating the right food? Is he behaving well and not smoking and not drinking too much and stuff like that? You do the evaluation and then you correlate that with his ailment situation. Now, does he have hypertension? Does he have diabetes? Does he have hypercholesteremia? Does he have cancer? Does he have an allergy, for example? And if he has any of these things, what is the lifestyle connection? Is it because of too much of stress? Is it because he's overweight? Is it because he's sedentary? You make the connection. And then, so the first step is that you do the evaluation. The second step is you identify the problem, and then you give him lifestyle solutions. Like I said, you could teach individuals to manage weight, teach individuals to exercise, teach individuals and send them off to Shrradha to teach them how to manage their stress. If they have allergies, you need to look at medical advice to manage the allergies. Use lifestyle change as a means of improving health. So lifestyle, as I suggested earlier, identification of problems. Step one, managing weight, doing your exercise, managing stress, sleeping enough, and behaving well in terms of not smoking and stuff. Those are the components of lifestyle medicine.
Thank you.
I have one question for you.
Yes.
Now, I know you said your tests are all validated and it's been used widely. So can you replace doctors and just do the screening? People do the annual check for themselves.
Can you replace doctors?
I know you've administered this.
No, but the question is, can you replace God? No, doctors are God. That is a reality we have to accept. Even I would turn to a doctor in medical need. I would. You cannot replace doctors. You can support doctors, and doctors can support us. The question that I could comfortably ask is, can you doctors replace the health professional? The answer to that question very likely is no. It is multidisciplinary teams. Whether it is in the space of medicine or whether it is in the space of health, we need multidisciplinary teams. For example, in my area of work, lifestyle medicine, my lead professional is a physician. He is supported by a nurse. I have with my team a psychologist, a nutritionist, an exercise therapist. And in these modern days, I have my computer programmer. The only person they don't need is me. But doctors, no, irreplaceable.
I think you should take Shrradha on your team also.
Shraddha's too expensive for me. But I'd love to have her. But I will get in touch with Shrradha anyway. And Doc, I'm going to get in touch with you too. I've already mentioned it to you.
Maybe you can fly me into Dubai and then we can talk.
Okay. I'd like to thank you all very much. I'd like to thank you all very much for helping me in this session. Remember that I'm an advocate. I'm an advocate for healthy lifestyles, and I'm an advocate for lifestyle medicine. I've spent 40 years of my life trying to propagate this field, and I am so grateful for the help that I've got from our medical professionals, from our psychologists, from our nutritionists, and I am deeply grateful to OL Nation also for agreeing to do something in the area of health. And now we have Kalpana. Thank you so much, Kalpana. I'm sorry for having taken your time.
No, that's perfectly all right. I want to just thank all three of you for that wonderful conversation, sharing your experience, expertise, knowledge with this Allergen community. There is a question I have for you from Sharon Koshi. She asks, what advice do you have for parents of toddlers that would help introduce their children to healthy ways of living from a young age?
Toddlers would mean Doc Sujatha.
And Shrradha too, possibly.
Shrradha too.
Shrradha and me.
I think to get the simple stuff out of the way, probably the right diet, the right timing, the right kind of inputs you give to your child. But I think also, especially infant feeding and diet is very important. So it's been found that if you just let children choose their food and not force things on them, over time, they naturally to pick the healthy foods. So I think that's something we need to learn, to kind of unlearn what we are forcing our children to do. I think some of the traditional diets really have stood its time. And there's a lot of science behind that we need to re-explore that and look into what best we can give the children. But I think above all, in this day and age, parenting. So I'm going to ask Shrradha to address that issue. The key is actually healthy parenting.
Before Shrradha comes in, Shrradha, before you come in, love, just one little statement from my side. I absolutely agree with everything that Dr. Shrradha says. I have to just add one sentence. It is so important for toddlers, children, I'm talking about babies below the age of 6, little babies before they go to school, because I believe the word toddler was used. It is so important for us to let them play, to allow them to play. Now, at this point of time in my life, I rush back from work at 5 o'clock. I make sure that no matter what meeting I have, the chairman can wait. I rush back, I run off to my grandchildren, and I make sure that I play with them. I make sure that I play with them for at least 1 or 2 hours. I think physical activity in children is so important. Playing with children teaches them how to lose, how to win. It teaches them how to mingle, how to be social, and so on and so forth. And I'm sure there are many more things that Shrradha would like to add.
So Kalpana, I want to just add here that make the entire activity a little bit more fun. Of course, I'm sure, like Dr. Sujatha was saying, give the choices to the child. But I think we also need to encourage, the effort that they're making. So it's not only the achievement, but the basic effort they're making to eat a broccoli or a carrot, and make it a little more fun. Probably a parent can also share their own experiences. We don't want our children to make the same mistakes as we've done. So probably share your own experiences from the past. That might work.
Thank you.
So add a little bit over there. Try and make your own food. Have fun in the kitchen with the children.
Yep.
That way you can ensure that you're giving them the good stuff. You're giving them natural stuff. You're introducing to a wide variety of colors and textures. If they adapt to it naturally. So it's not excessive anything. And I think moderation is a key. Use moderation, nothing excessive. Just because something is good doesn't mean you have to force feed or, use only one thing. A variety and moderation.
I think all of you have given excellent advice to Sharon, between good parenting to physical, contact, play, food, eat. So I think there is plenty in there. And I think all of us will remember when we were kids, our parents would, hand feed us. And in my personal opinion, that gives you good taste also growing up. But I personally have a couple of questions for each of you. Just to wrap things up, you can keep your answers brief, just one word or a few sentences if you like. To Professor Kennedy, considering we might have compromised our well-being in growing up, how do we find a way to grow younger as we age?
It is never too late, never too late. If you were smoking, and I'm not saying you are, it's just an analogy. If you are smoking and you give up smoking, well, then within 2 years, you would be almost back to normal. You will find that your lung regeneration, you will find that your fitness levels improve, you'll find that your circulation improves. So if you use that analogy with a lost youth in a manner of speaking, and you want to get younger as you age now, it's all very simple. Rule number 1, I'll just give you 5 rules. Rule number 1, please have a medical screening, understand exactly what your problem is. Rule number 2, eat the right food in the right quantities. Don't forget your fruit and vegetables. Rule number 3, do not forget to exercise every day. It is so important. Half an hour every day is great. Rule number 4, manage your stresses and tensions with loving companionship and friendship. Solve your problems. Rule number 5, sleep. Sleep, sleep, sleep. Don't forget, sleep for 6 to 8 hours a day. Rule number 6, you've got to give up that smoking. You've got to manage that alcohol. And rule number 7, safety at all times, every time. If you do that, Kalpana, you're going to look, well, you're already 5 years younger than you. You don't want to do more than that. Okay? Just follow the simple rules that your grandma told you, the simple rules that your grandmom told you, and you will grow younger as you age.
Adrian, I don't want to go back to learning my ABCs again. It's been a long time.
True.
Okay. If you don't mind, Rohan, do you have a question for any of Sujatha or Shrradha, or?
Yes, thank you so much, everybody. It's been really interesting, and I have a couple of questions and some housekeeping notes as well as we go along. One of my questions, I listened to Sujatha, and this did not come up in our prep sessions. I did not know that genes could be modified as a result of your diet. I mean, I think you made a comment about that. I was taught that we were given our genes and that was our fate. Now, are you saying fate can be altered from a genetic point of view?
Absolutely. Several, it's really interesting that if you give the right input, the proteins actually translate, and it tells you to make the favored proteins. Definitely your environment, your what you eat, you can alter to a very large extent in a lot of patients. So that's what we try and see. That's why, eating healthy, exercising, all of that is very important. Again, if you talk allergies, if you talk disease prevention, it's the right timing of food, it's the right kind of food, the right proportion that you introduce along with the other environmental factors. But the answer is definitely yes. Good genes in good conditions do well. Bad genes in good conditions do well. Bad genes in bad conditions, that's disaster. So you have a choice.
I absolutely agree with I agree with Sujatha. Your genes are permanent, but activating or not activating your genes depends upon you and your environment. You can have a bad gene. If you never activate it, nothing's going to happen to you. You can have a good gene, but if you're overweight and highly stressed and smoke, etc., it becomes a bad gene. You can change your genes. Dr. Sujatha is absolutely right. The science of epigenetics. It's no more the science of genetics. It is now the science of epigenetics. You switch your genes on and off depending upon how you behave.
My question thank you so much, Adrian and Dr. Sujatha. My question for Shrradha is linked to obviously her specialty, which is mental health. And we're talking about boarding school kids. Has the situation changed today? When we were in school, that's about 30 plus years ago, the situation was very different. I met the headmaster. I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Prabhakar last week when I passed through Lovedale. And he told me, you old Laurentians of my generation and those before me, probably Adrian, talk too much about your good times and bad times in school. Today, most of those bad times, quote unquote, and I'm talking about bullying, don't exist. I mean, obviously they would manifest in different ways. What is your take on the situation of, let's say, Lovedale, which is a co-educational boarding school? Is the situation the same? Is it going to get better or is it going to get worse?
I think definitely not. So we hear a lot more about certain cases of bullying or abuse. We've heard in a couple of very renowned boarding schools in the last couple of years. They've come in the papers. But I must say this is also because of the exposure that is increased. So a lot more people talk about mental health today. Back then, we didn't have a therapist. Today, there's a mandatory rule for every school to have a therapist. So I definitely think that we are talking a lot more. The situation is much better for children. Children have the adequate help. They can, if you go and say that I'm anxious or I'm low, they can go and speak to somebody, who has a cabin in the same room, in the same school.
Thank you for that, Sujatha. And I just want to emphasize to all of us all of my friends and peers and fellow Laurentians who are listening, that the headmaster made it very, very, very clear. He has zero tolerance for this type of activity, and the school has actually blossomed and children are thriving. And I think they're just waiting for them to get back to Lovedale. And like Johnny mentioned, that the interest in getting back to Lovedale is as a boarding school.
I just want to point out here,
yes, go ahead.
While there was bullying in school at that time, there was a lot of compassion as well. So absolutely. I think we need to take both the perspectives into account.
Well, I enjoyed my time. I mean, although I joined Lovedale when I was, I think, 8 or just before 8. So it was pretty young. And I think folks like Adrian probably joined a bit earlier. And there's nothing to say that we did not enjoy our time. It's just an aspect of school which we talk about now and then. And he said, if you guys can speak less and less about those things to your spouses, probably your kids will get back into Lovedale too. So that's a very nice comment he made. And thank you so much, Mr. Prabhakar, for welcoming me and my family and friends when we visit you in Lovedale. So I'd like to thank you, Adrian. We spoke about the session many months ago, and I think it was well formed. We've had really good specialists, Shrradha, and Sujatha, Dr. Sujatha as well. Thank you once again, Adrian. And obviously, as part of our working group, your job is not yet done. We've got a lot more to do next month and the months coming. So thank you so much for all your input, Adrian. Oh, you namaste, right? Yeah, okay. Well, something I'd like to tell everybody right now is some housekeeping notes. We obviously have a session for OL Nation next month. Next month, we're going to focus on the creative arts, performing arts, actually. We've got some fantastic OL Laurentians who are going to participate. Meera Balachandran from the batch of 1980, if I'm not mistaken, and Rosa George, who probably is from 99, I'm not too sure, sorry, 89, I think. Anyway, they will talk about the art form, dance as an art form, coloring, and various other things. We have a few more specialists who are going to come on, and we look forward to seeing you guys next month. The date may be modified because we are in Christmas season. We will update you on that as we go along. Separately, just to be clear, the OLA has been very active. 6 months have gone, 7 months have gone. Actually, this year is coming to a close, and we are so happy that as OL Laurentians, you guys have participated and supported these sessions, the OL Assembly and the OL Nation, of course. So don't forget, these days, I need to tell you to subscribe, like our pages, and support this system. Thank you once again, everybody. It's been a great pleasure hosting this session, and I look forward to seeing you again.